raining. I don't know if it's raining in Fruitland County, but it might be. It's raining in Wheeler. They might move that fan system to another day, or we might just build it in the rain. It's just easier to seal all that when it's dry. And then we got them glass things to replace. I haven't checked the weather. The rain might be going to stop in a little bit. Might only be raining at my end. Might not be raining down there. And that store, they wouldn't let me buy right without buying, without a card and not cash. I had to spend at least $3. So then I gotta go find me something for $3. I got this coffee that's supposed to support veterans. But now they done put, I don't know what, but some kind of GMO ingredient in there. So I don't really want it. The hot coffee in there ain't good no more. That used to be the place to get coffee before they bought it. And when they bought it, they did do some improvements to the store. There's some things that they did that, I mean, when you own a business, it's your business. It's nobody else's place to say. You know, nobody has control of what you do but you. Customers might think something about it, but it's like when they bought the business, they fired everybody that worked there, and they only hired other Indians. And the coffee is just so much weaker than it used to be. We used to always go there for coffee because Aiden's would have the strong coffee. And now it's all watered down. And I think that creamer's too old. I think it's been on the counter for too long. So I won't even get it. I wish we didn't have to have, I mean, the cards and all are convenient, but the bank is getting a little cut off of every transaction. They get a little too greedy, you know, and collapse the whole economy that they live in. I'm not talking about the Indians. I'm talking about the Jews with the bank cards. I mean, they practice nepotism like the Indians, but they might want to make high interest and all these fees, and eventually money for a healthy economy, the money's got to keep circulating. You don't really want to just sitting somewhere doing nothing, because then it's not growing anything, it's not building anything. Now you might need to save up a lot of money to get enough money to start, you know, like to buy a factory or something. So there's times to save money for the purpose of spending later. But if you just for the purpose of control, you know, like BlackRock buying up a bunch of Bitcoin, if you're trying to control the monetary policy, you're trying to control the money, and you're trying to hold on to so much money just to take it out of the system or be able to dump it on the system or buy stuff before the prices rise, eventually you can take too much money out of the system and people can't pay their debts and everything starts falling apart and there's no growth and the debt's growing faster than the growth of goods and services produced, and you wind up with a mess. And then normally people feel some kind of way about it and you get kicked out for the 110th time. Hey everybody. Or hey, it's one person commented 4 times. Hello, said JM. I gotta watch these cars in the oncoming lane more than read the comments. But hello. I like the men that work there though in that store. They're nice and friendly and everything. I could just make a better cup of coffee. A lot of the old people want the coffee weaker at Mama's restaurant. They ask for that. So now her coffee's weak. Say it hurts their stomach. And maybe when you get older, maybe you get more sensitive to the caffeine later on. So I don't know. Whoa, the river is. Look how all the way to the trees. Some of the trees are in the river. There's water. I didn't keep filming, but if I kept pointing the camera there, there's water in the spillway part too, the overflow of the river. You know, the first long section of the bridge, you cross in the Milwaukee River, or I'm at the Okmulgee, called one of them. Shit, I should know what river I just crossed. That's probably the Oconee. Yeah, it's Oconee. And then the next 2 sections of the bridge are just for when the river gets too high and spills over. And the third one's not full, but the first one is. The first spillway is completely full, flowing over. They must be getting some rain up in North Georgia too, or something. That's a big change in the river height from yesterday, y'all. And it had been rising, but not like that now. Somebody got a lot of water in North Georgia. Something. Are they letting water out the dam or something? I've been seeing more and more, like, you know how the media, they choose their victims. There's certain groups of people, when they commit crimes, they want to kind of cover it up. And when other people, they want to put it everywhere. And there have been too many children getting attacked at daycares. It is ridiculous, and it seems to be racially motivated. It seems to be some people that work at daycare that just hate white kids. So if you're white, don't put your kids in daycare, I don't guess. Dang. I know it's not. I know most of the daycares are safe, but dang. I hate the whole idea of it. You know how our society's structured to where for most of the development of the children, they're away from the parents, and then the elderly are just in some nursing home to rot somewhere. It's horrible. No extended family, and no family can work together anymore. You know, you think about how families are spread out all over America, but if they were to just put like 0.5% of their money in a shared account, they could have like their own family insurance, or there's things they can do. They could come up with some system that holds the members accountable to have some kind of loans for each other, stuff like that. The Jews do this, the Arabs do this, the Indians do this. White people can't seem to do this. Black people, I don't see black people doing this. Mexicans do it a little bit. They help each other start businesses. Sometimes but white people are very individualistic. But there's some downsides to that. I talk about trade-offs a lot. There is some downsides to that, to the point to where we have like no community. You see how it's falling apart? No community. Like, you're not going to go to China, and unless things have changed, you're not going to go to China or the Philippines or Japan or something and see all the elderly in the nursing home rotting and dying, you know, with nobody taking care of them. It's insane. It's insane, really, when you think about it. And then, you know, if you just keep normalizing it, that's where you're going to wind up too, because everybody's going to think it's just normal to put everybody in a nursing home. And then you're just old and lonely for year after year after year with poor health that fails and fails. It's just terrible. it's terrible that we don't have any kind of extended family holding together, that we're not helping out. Like, it's not like it used to be. And then when people have children, like, we need people to have more children, or we're going to have a labor force collapse, and we're going to go backwards in technology, and our standard of living is going to drop. But it's like, so we need people to have kids, but they can't afford to have the kids because we got like one person being taxed for every 1.5 people drawing Social Security, when it used to be like 50 to 1 or 200 to 1 or something like that. They started that mess, like, I think after the Civil War or something, where a lot of men were dead, and there was like 200 people paying for every one person. Now it's one person paying for every 1.5 person. So Social Security is going to collapse. That's not going to last. That's unsustainable. But then it's like, the reason is because there's not enough kids to tax to pay the old people. Well, they can't afford to have the kids because their money's already being taken to take care of the old people. So then they don't have the money to take care of the old people. They put them in a nursing home. They don't have money it's just a mess. And we got to do something. I mean, maybe it just has to, it seems like there's a natural, regenerative property of civilizations where eventually they get too messed up and they collapse and start over. And they keep some of the good stuff from before, and some innovation happens. Like right after the bronze collapse, it sucked. And you would have said the bronze collapse was the good old days. But then the Iron Age rolls around, and you wouldn't really want to go back to the Bronze Age. That period in between, you really don't want to be there either. That happens over and over and over again. And you notice two nations normally what happens is all the little nations, they fight each other, and it starts being fewer and fewer larger nations and trade networks. And then you've got two really big, and they meet and they fight, and one of them seems to win against the other, but in winning, they've completely abandoned the founding principles of the civilization. They did that before they got into empire anyway. And both of these empires that fight, they become more like each other as they fight with each other, as they dance with each other. And it makes a new type of culture. And it all breaks back up into smaller countries again, and it starts over. It just goes in a cycle over and over and over. One day the cycle might be broken. One day when it gets up to the two main superpowers that fight for dominance, one might truly beat the other without destroying itself in the process, and there'd be a one world government. I doubt it, and so far it's never happened. And it's the same with the history of China. If you look at China, people think of it as being this one big country that's always been this one big country. It follows the same pattern. It's a bunch of small warring states. They start kind of merging each other. They form a one big united China. It lasts a while, then it breaks up into a bunch of more smaller warring states over and over again. The whole world does this. Sir John Glubb wrote an essay called The Fate of Empires. It's a must read. That man had insight there, and he said a lot in only a few pages. It's not very long. It doesn't take very long to read it. I don't know, maybe it's 10, 12 pages, something like that. Maybe in small print. I mean, I'm sure if you're farsighted, it's probably more than 12 pages to read. But anyway, Sir John Glubb, Fate of Empires. It'd be something good to read. I recommend reading the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion with an open mind and looking at history and just comparing world history with the protocols. Just do that. And then if you've read the protocols, which some people won't read them because they'll dismiss them as fraud before they read them, you'll see that in the plan, already plan to be taking control of the media and not holding. And then what they'll do is they'll say, look, some of these same phrases and terms in the protocols are repeated in these fictional novels. Therefore, it is a forgery or a fraud. And that makes no sense. It's like, just because they both say New World Order, just because they both say central banking, just because they just describe the same things, it doesn't discount. It doesn't disprove anything. I mean, the fact those same people that are writing those books are involved in the protocols. Those same people are in the Bavarian Illuminati. Those same people are Masons. Those same people go to the same country clubs. They're going to use similar phrases. They're going to have similar ideas. They're in the same circles. So it's really crazy how they just take a newspaper. The newspaper says it's bullshit off of no evidence whatsoever. Then they start using the newspaper as evidence. Then they start, and the newspaper, if you trace it all the way back to the source, you've got this newspaper being like, well, these novels use similar phrases as the protocols, therefore it's a forgery. That's a bunch of bullshit. But just read them and compare it with history. But I would also say to think about the fate of empires from Sir John Glubb and apply it to them too. I think their arrogance blinds them to it. They are subject to the same laws of nature. And you go through the same cultural phases from, you have this really defined culture and you've got a lot of vigor behind that culture. You've got cultural expansion, military expansion, economic expansion. I forgot the exploratory phase. There's that too. That comes about, I forget where that is. It's that between military and commercial, I think. Then you go into sciences. The nation focuses on sciences. Then they focus on arts. Then they just focus on ease and pleasure and comforts and excesses. And then they become corrupt, and then they start fighting amongst each other over what they have. They're not expansionists anymore. They're very defensive. And they normally get invaded, and they can't get along with each other to fight against the invader. They're so busy fighting over who's king, who's got the money, you know, who gets what part of what's left of what's being conquered. They don't have the same value system that they did in the founding of the nation, and the nation ends. And you know, it really focuses on art a lot. After this science phase, they really put a lot on art before the nation goes into degeneracy and collapse and dies. But in that art is the seeds of that civilization that inspire other civilizations. So it's like a flower. It grows and it casts a seed before it dies. And there's a lot of arrogance in the language of the protocols because they really are looking at the rest of humanity as stupid beasts that can't understand nothing, that can never amount to any kind of effective resistance. Also think about how the turtle slowly and steadily wins the race. That's how they've been winning, really. They haven't been really building their empire at the end of a sword, but at the end of the pen, on a bank ledger, writing up fake ass money out of nothing. I mean, your promise to pay back the debt, they call that money and then they add interest. No money is made to back the interest, only the principal. So you wind up with more debt than there is money in the money supply. So the Jewish bankers are owed more money than exists, and nobody can pay it. Nobody can get a hold of it all. And so there's foreclosures here and there, but most people are able to get enough money. It's like a game of musical chairs where they're just taking more and more chairs out as you play. So in the beginning, nobody really notices. Some people really benefit a lot from having credit, from being able to get a hold of a lot of money that they didn't have to save up for or earn, that they can just borrow it and pay it back later. They can just take it from the future. So a lot of people have a lot of incentive to want to keep the system because of that. But as time goes on, those values, those benefits of the system are gone. To start off with, you could just have the money to finance these corporations to go explore North America and start cities. You'd have the money to pay armies ridiculous amounts of money. You'd have the money to do all these startups. But in the end, the way this plays out, the debt continues. The United States government borrows money from that private banking cartel. At one point, it was like 125% on the dollar. So a lot of people think it's the government that's printing the money. It's not. It's a private banking cartel. Its members are like Italian Jews and British Jews. There's probably some American Jews, but it's mostly foreign European Jews. And they also own, the Rothschilds. They use a lot of these other families as agents to hold wealth in their name without, seeming so much of a monopoly, but they're poking their finger on the King Charles's chest because, they know that there's a city, I know I'm getting off subject a little bit, but there's a city inside London called Inner City Square, and the monarchs have to get permission from the mayor to even enter or exit that city. It's a financial district, just like DC's like a military and the Vatican's like a religious. All these different cities have like 3 stars on the flag and go by some Roman laws and stuff. I don't really know about inner city London too much. I ain't never been allowed in there. But the Bank of London is controlled by the Rothschilds, just like the Federal Reserve is. And the International Monetary Fund, they use like non-Jew front people to try to make it look like it's not just the Rothschilds, but it is the Rothschilds. And the IMF cannot be sued in any court of any government. By treaty, they're exempt from that. So nobody is able to hold the International Monetary Fund accountable. Nobody in the world. So the International Monetary Fund is able to use the same system of credit with the same inflated interest as a weapon to destroy any nation. And they're also able to call credit on any currency to any other country. So if the IMF wanted to, they could say, okay, we're going to take some of the wealth off of the Chinese currency and put it on the U.S. or some off the U.S. and put it on El Salvador. Just at will. The IMF can do that. Nobody can sue them in any court. And like I said, it's the same system of debt. It's the same pyramid scheme to where all the money funnels to them. And so when you take all that into consideration, you see that the United Nations is not some organization that's really being controlled by America and England and France and all that people think. It's being controlled by the banks that are in those nations. It's all the same bank. It's being controlled by the IMF. That's the real power, and the United Nations works for them. They don't exist as an agency for the United Nations. They are the ones that are running everything. And the plan is to make everybody indebted to them. And I forget what they say the world debt is, but the world debt is higher than the world currency too, because, it's all the same system. And they're trying to the trend is to break down larger powers into smaller powers and not to have any homogeneous states, because then it's harder for them to unite and have any kind of resistance. But if you read it, they've got really horrible things in mind. It's almost like they see us as a machinery, as a robot. They don't really care about us or our product. They see us as a means to an end. And in the plan toward the end, they plan forced sterilization and death. But not yet. But just like how there's the fate of empires, there's this cycle of now I'm going to sound kind of crazy and get into, before what I was saying is more based in facts and evidence. Now I'm going to go into more theory and imagination and speculation. So everything I said before this is more credible than what I say after this. This is just my own personal theory and opinion. I believe there's a larger cycle that happens over and over again, where the people behind the curtain They let the human population, they let it grow up to a certain amount, and they harvest our innovation, our infrastructure, everything that we've built, and then they wipe us back down. And they're in their underground bunkers with their geothermal power and their grow lights growing their food and their robots and their AI and their laser rifles and everything else, right? Their drones and everything. And then after the collapse, after the cataclysm cycle, and most people are dead or reduced to being like hunter-gatherers scattered out, then they reemerge as the wizard class, the gods, the god kings. They come up out of the ground, this beast out of the earth. They come up out of all their little bunkers and stuff, having survived. And the people that remain have no idea of the technology of the past. And so these people seem like gods to them. And they say that they're sons of gods and kings, and the cycle starts all over again. Now I'm at work, and I got to go. So y'all have a good morning.